Hello, I'm Andrew Hara, the host of the Mom Squad. I wanted to tell you about my movies. All are available on Tubi, which is a free streaming service. The last one is a zombie drama about how a pandemic and isolation could drive a group of people mad. When the virus hits, John finds himself alone and scared until he meets Michael, his protector. But when Karina, another survivor, enters the mix, everything that John and Michael knew will be turned on its head. The last one is a zombie virus movie that's somehow even more relevant today. Plus, it has zombies. Check it out. Borderland is a mexploitation film about living in El Paso. When Sarah finds herself in debt to the cartels, she has until sunrise to find some missing monies with the help of her executioner. Borderland is a true midnight movie and a lot of fun. Finally, the documentary Humble Spirits tells the story of the Hahn family, including champion Jennifer Hahn from El Paso, Texas. The entire Hahn family has grown up in the combat sports and has helped shape who they are both in and out of the ring. Humble Spirits, a family of fighters, is the perfect documentary for boxing fans of all ages. Check out Tubi to watch all my films. Finally, The Empty Space, winner of multiple awards, including the Sacramento Horror Film Festival's Best of the Fest, is a cosmic horror about Amy Andrews, who's dealing with anxiety and depression after a violent attack that killed her husband. As she tries to find herself, she starts to lose her grasp on reality. Or could it be something much more sinister? The Empty Space is full of twists and turns, with Grace DeWilder of Rue Morgue magazine calling it a powerful film full of excellent performances by practically every cast member. All of Andrew Hada's movies are available to rent or buy on streaming services such as Tubi, Amazon, and many other places. We hope that you help support us by watching these films. Now, let's start the Bomb Squad. Recently, I was watching the 2023 Martin Scorsese crime epic Killers of the Flower Moon, and I couldn't help finding parallels with a very different kind of film. John Carpenter's 1976 masterpiece, Halloween. Now, on the surface, these two movies seem like they couldn't be further apart. Killers being a true story about the Osage County murder, while Halloween is about an escaped convict killing on the scariest day of the year. And while the approach is very, very different, their end goal is the same. Both movies want to show the true face of evil and remind the audience that evil can be anyone. So let's find out how these two films approach the same goal as we explore the parallels between Killers of the Flower Moon and Halloween. Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we explore the depths of films. I'm writer-director Andrew Hada, and if you like this, please give a like or subscribe, or you can see one of my movies on Tubi. That helps us as well. Before we start, let's give a quick breakdown of each film. And as we continue, I would recommend seeing both films because we're going to be spoiling them. It's just the way of this deep dive. Okay, let's get started. 1978's Halloween was written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, with Carpenter directing. The movie kickstarted the trend of slasher films that still goes on to this day.
I enjoy scaring people a lot.
The film follows Michael Myers, an escaped inmate, as he continues his murder spree. Besides Myers, the leads include Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode as a local teenager that Michael targets, and Donald Pleasant's Dr. Loomis, Michael's doctor on a mission to stop the madman.
Because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
Killers of the Flower Moon is based on the real-life story of the Osage County murders, where a group of white men pulled a scheme to marry and inherit oil land from the indigenous women. Leonardo DiCaprio's Ernest Burkhart plays one of these men, and we follow him as he falls for Molly Burkhart, a prominent member of the tribe, played by Oscar-nominated Lily Gladstone. We also follow Ernest as he teams with his uncle, chillingly played by Robert De Niro, to take everything from the family, including Molly herself. So right off the bat, you can see how these movies are going to deal with some of the worst traits of humanity. And so let's see their approaches. Halloween's iconic opening starts as many horror films do, with a killer watching his victims. Carpenter puts you in the shoes of the killer as he starts his murder spree. It's our eyes he's using and our hand he's killing with. There is no remorse or empathy from Carpenter's side, though. He doesn't want us to relate to Michael. He wants us to fear him by putting us into his mind. Also, this is to help set up his first big twist.
Michael?
Making the killer that we've been embodying nothing more than a young boy. And this is also the only scene where we clearly see Michael's face, but we'll talk about that later. Carpenter not only shocks, but establishes his main theme. The real horror could come from anyone, even a child. Killers works in a more subtle way. The movie sets up the Osage tribe finding the oil that made them rich, shows wealth as it's distributed throughout the tribe. But the first main character we meet is again the killer. In this film, it's Ernest, coming home from Oklahoma after World War I to start his life again and live with his uncle, Robert De Niro's King. They discuss how things have changed since Ernest was gone and since the tribe struck oil.
They were sick people. They were kindly people, big-hearted people, but they're sickly.
You may not realize it while it's happening, but they aren't just discussing the local gossip of the town. King is laying the groundwork for the plan they want to enact.
You like women?
Oh, you know I like women. That's my weakness.
They set up Ernest with a job driving around Molly, with the ultimate goal for them to marry, which would in turn give him the rights as spouse and father of the children. They would then just need to bump them off, which doesn't seem like a big deal because according to them,
They were sick people.
something we see right off the bat is the callousness that they speak about the tribe. A lot of the film is broken up into conversations between King and Ernest. Through those conversations, we see how little the white men think about the indigenous women. Scorsese making us a fly on the wall so we can hear how horrible these men are. He was only able to do this because he made Ernest one thing. Another thing they have in common, if you've noticed, is that the protagonist of both movies is the villain. Now keep in mind, this is a simple definition of protagonist, which means the main character, not the hero of the story, but the one driving the film or the story forward. Ernest is the driving force of the film, as his arrival and his love for Molly sets up most of the actions of the film. If you're still confused about how Michael could both be the protagonist and the villain, think about who sets everything in motion. After the prologue, the film's story begins when Michael escapes from the mental institution as he makes his way to his hometown. All the other characters are hindrances to Michael's quest and are only connected through him. There is something unique about his portrayal, not just as the protagonist, but as the villain of this piece. We never see his face. Again, before Michael gains the mask, and whenever we see him as an adult, Carpenter is trying to hammer home that his face isn't important, and that Michael could be any one of us by leaving his appearance to our imagination. The mask itself is devoid of any distinguishing features. Even when you do see the face that Michael has attained, it's one that isn't easily identifiable. Killers, on the other hand, takes a different, more controversial approach to the protagonist. As stated earlier, Scorsese makes a bold choice in making Ernest the protagonist because despite being given a hero's journey, Ernest is very much the villain of the film. Following Ernest as he returns, falls in love, and takes part in the killings puts him at the center of the story. This take was so controversial that even the consultants said this.
Martin Scorsese not being Osage, I think he did a great job representing our people. But this story is being told, this history is being told almost from the perspective of Ernest Burkhart. And they kind of give him this conscience and they kind of depict that there's love. But when somebody conspires to murder your entire family, that's not love.
The main criticism of the film was about this. In fact, I had the same thought the first time I saw the film. I had no idea why Scorsese would do this, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Like his choice, I disagreed with it. And the more I thought about it, the more it stuck with me. And I slowly realized, I even went back to the theater to watch it again because I realized what he was doing. And then I kind of saw it again to like cement that. But it does really work and it helps kind of bring that story up, even if it makes it more uncomfortable. And that's why Scorsese did what he did, I think. You're begging him to stop the murders and the madness, and yet every meeting he has with the murderers and every hand he has in the crime his own wife is trying to solve sets him up as the worst person out of everyone.
What do you think's going to happen to Molly and all of them? I love them, but in the turning of the earth, they're going to go. Their time is over.
Him being the protagonist also sets him up to fail because not only are we expecting him to see the error of his ways, but every time he doesn't, it makes us realize how greedy, selfish, and evil he really was. This is especially highlighted by how easily the FBI solves these crimes. They weren't masterminds who had a genius plan. They were greedy men who managed to get other greedy men to do their dirty work. As the men are arrested, Ernest still doesn't grasp what he's done, even though at this point his crimes have extended to poisoning Molly. Scorsese frames the film so audience can't look away nor forgive Ernest for his crimes. Every single one of them is on screen. That's because of the choice of making him the protagonist. It subverts our expectations and exemplifies our horrors. Both movies go out of their way to show us the horrors of true evil and how that evil all boils down to man. While Halloween takes a broad approach and says anyone could be evil, Killer says anyone could be evil, but especially the ones you love. Both make that shocking statement that evil, real pure evil, will always be closer than you think. The last similarity is, of course, at the end. Since both movies are about the nature of evil, they end with the same message that evil never really ends. After being shot by Dr. Loomis and falling off the second story, Michael's left for dead, but on second look, his body's gone, setting up a well known trope now. At the time, it wasn't to set up a trope, it was to show that evil lives on to fight another day. Killers ends by telling us that Molly's battle ended as many things in our country end: limited sentences for the criminals, histories erased, atrocities forgotten. The movie ends with a radio play recreating the events of the film. Scorsese himself makes a rare appearance as an announcer. Scorsese is setting himself up as a speaker to reinforce the sentiment that despite his best efforts, this horrific event has been largely forgotten outside of his film.
There was no mention of the murders.
Again, a bold move to state in your own film that a film isn't enough of a statement, but it is true. The Osage story is so tragic that it bleeds all over the history of our country, and yet little is known about it. Even in a 4 hour epic, Scorsese leaves pieces out, such as the fact that every single member of the Osage County had to have a spouse that was white be a sponsor for them, or they could not access their money. It's hinted at, but it's not really explained. In truly doing the story justice, he realizes he can't do the story justice because nothing was solved and nothing will be solved. Even though we know who committed these murders, there was no justice found for Molly or any of her family, and even till this day, justice will never come. And thus, in its own way, it's saying the horror will live on. We can never kill it. All we can do is fight against it and recognize it when it's in front of us. So, fight we must, because evil cannot win. I'm Andrew, and this has been a deep dive.